Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Huck. Today I'm doing a review for The Mad Ship by Robin Hobb. This is the second book in her Live Ship Traders trilogy, which is also part of the Realm of the Elderling series. Since this is the second book in the series, I just want to say that this review will not have any spoilers for this book, but spoilers for the first book, Ship of Magic, may come up at some point. So if you haven't read the first book, Ship of Magic, you may not want to watch this video. But if you have read the first book but haven't read the second, there won't be any spoilers for this book. So that being said, let's just get started with the review. This book picks up very soon after Ship of Magic ended, and at this point some of our characters have gone separate ways. Some of them are finally kind of starting to come together. So Althea at this point is on Ophelia heading back to Bingtown. Brashen is on a different ship going somewhere else, and this ship seems to be a little bit shady. Wintro is with Vivacia and the pirate Kennett, which I never know how to pronounce his name. Do you say it Kennett or Kennett? Where's the emphasis? In my head I've been saying it Kennett, so that's what I'm gonna go with. But the pirate Kennett has now taken control of the live ship Vivacia and has Wintro as well. Back in Bingtown, Amber is still trying to befriend the live ship Paragon, who is considered the mad ship, and trying to build trust with him. And then the Vestrit family is kind of trying to figure out how they're going to survive since they are running out of money. They are trying to hold down the fort, and they're also kind of trying to deal with this whole courtship that is going on with the Rain Wilders and Malta. So there are still a lot of characters, a lot of story threads that are going on here. But with this second book, I enjoyed this one a lot more than the first one. One of the things that I found especially helpful in this book is that a lot of the storylines are actually starting to intersect now. In the first book, there were just so many characters and so many points of view that it became kind of tedious to me, and in this one a lot of our characters are finally starting to come together. And so while we still have many points of view that we're following, it's really only a couple of storylines, but you get to see each storyline from different perspectives. But it's a little bit easier to follow in that way. One thing that I was kind of exasperated with is that they do add in another kind of storyline or another set of characters, and at that point I was like, you're finally getting all of these characters to overlap, so it's a little bit easier to follow, and so you're like, oh, now's the perfect time to just add more people. This story also gets more into the politics. We're starting to see some things actually come to fruition. I think the story moves along a little bit more. The first book felt very slow paced, and this one kind of moved at a better pace for me. I'm starting to notice for myself kind of a pattern in Robin Hobb's books. This is only the second series I've read by her, but it seems to me like the first book of the series I tend to really dislike, and then the second book I enjoy a lot more. And the reason I think that is because in the first book, it seems to me that her pattern is to pretty much just spend the entire first book just destroying people's lives. And she really spends most of the book just tearing everything down and destroying their lives and putting them in terrible situations. And then in the second book, I feel like the plot really starts going. Now that they're in these terrible situations and their lives have been ripped away from them, now they actually start kind of figuring out what are they going to do next, or they start rebuilding, or they start an adventure, or they start moving along and starting a real plot line. That's what it feels like to me, at least, that the first books have less plot and more just let's just destroy everything, and then the second book really gets going. So I enjoy the second one a lot more. Another difference that I have kind of noticed between the first book and the second book is that I think in the first book, the biggest change in the book is the characters in their life circumstances. From the beginning of the first book to the end of the first book, their life circumstances change drastically, and that is the biggest difference. Whereas in the second book, I think the largest change really is in the characters, that from the beginning of the Mad Ship to the end of it, they are in completely different places mentally or emotionally or just as human beings. Like, some of these characters seem like completely different people at the end of the book. And I don't say that to mean that they're inconsistent, because we see a consistent and logical progression of their character. Their character development is very present and very visible. But at the end of the book, if I look back at what that character was like at the beginning, I can see that they have changed so incredibly much. But I love that kind of character development. One character that we get to learn a lot more about is the pirate Knit, and he's a very interesting character. He is a villain, but he's also a very complex character, and we get to know a lot more about him, and I really want to know more. Like, there's so much about him that in so many ways he's a really terrible person, but he's also very interesting, and I really want to know more about his character, and I did really enjoy the chapters that were from his point of view. Also, the difference between his perspective on a situation and the perspective of like his crew members on that same situation were so interesting. Some of the characters that also go through the most change over the course of the book are Wintro, who changes quite a bit, but also Malta. This was one of the things that I found most interesting. Malta's character goes through so much change and development over the course of this book. Going into it, I hated Malta. One of the first notes that I have for this book is saying, like, I hate Malta and I feel bad for the guy who is courting her. But over the course of the book, my opinion of her changed so much. She has become such an interesting character, and there are very few characters that my opinions of them have changed so drastically as my opinions of Malta in this one book. And I'm really excited to see where her story goes and where her character development goes. Then, of course, I always really enjoy Robin Hobb's writing. It is a little bit slower, a little bit denser than some, but I like that kind of writing. I find her world building very easy to fall into. It's the kind of book that I really get swept up in it, and I just find her writing so easy to read. Not easy in the way that it is simple or quick, because it is neither of those things, but I just kind of find it easy to fall into her writing and get very absorbed in it. So I always really enjoy that aspect of this. One complaint that I do sometimes have about these books is just how incredibly long they are. I have kind of mixed feelings about it, because I do think that for a lot of that like great character development and for the world building, it's really great to have so much like time and space in the book so that it can really happen in a way that makes sense. You get so much detail and information, which I love. But also, a lot of times by the end of these books, like, I'm kind of bitter by the end of the book, because I'm like, I just want this to be over. It takes so long to read these, and it's not because I don't like the book, it's just they always feel like they're about 100 to 200 pages longer than I really have patience for. I have quite a bit of patience for like long, dense fantasy books, but I think that these ones are just over the threshold of what I have patience for personally. So that's something that I don't know if it's really the fault of the book, because in a lot of ways I do think that the story and the characters in the world to unfold the way they need to, it needs to be as long as it is. But for myself, it's a little longer than I would like. But overall, I did really enjoy this book, and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. So that is all for my review of The Mad Ship by Robin Hobb. Let me know in the comments if you have read it, what you thought of it, what you think of Malta, if you also are interested in her or like her, because like my thoughts on her have just like changed so much. Also, let me know if you have any like theories about what's going to happen, because there are a lot of prophecies being thrown around and I'm just like, what is going on? But thank you all for watching, and until next time, bye!